My sister banned me from her baby shower after I paid $10,000. So I took back the one thing that ruined her day. I never thought I'd be standing in the rain, staring at my phone with tears streaming down my face, all because I tried to do something nice for my sister. But that's exactly where I found myself, and the journey to that moment began 3 months earlier with a phone call that changed everything. "Ellie, are you sitting down?" My sister Vanessa's voice crackled through the speaker, uncharacteristically tentative. I pressed the phone closer to my ear, lowering the heat under the pasta I was cooking. "Yeah, what's up? Everything okay?" "I'm pregnant." 2 words. Just 2 simple words, and my entire world tilted on its axis. My sister, my complicated, beautiful, frustrating sister, was going to be a mother. "Ness, that's amazing," I exclaimed, genuinely thrilled despite the complicated history between us. "How far along are you?" 12 weeks. We wanted to be sure before telling anyone. Her voice softened. "You're the first person I've told outside of James and my doctor." That admission hit me hard. Vanessa and I hadn't always been close. Growing up, we were the classic case of oil and water. She was the social butterfly, eternally popular and effortlessly charming, while I was the studious introvert who found refuge in books rather than parties. Our relationship had fractured further in college when she dated my longtime crush, a deliberate move that even our parents had frowned upon. The years since had been a delicate dance of polite conversation at family gatherings and perfunctory birthday texts. Yet here she was, sharing her most precious news with me first. "I'm honored, Ness." Truly. I swallowed hard, tamping down the memories of past hurts. "How are you feeling?" "Exhausted. Nauseous. Terrified. Excited." She laughed, a nervous sound I rarely heard from my typically confident sister. "I have no idea what I'm doing, Ellie." That vulnerability stirred something protective in me. "Nobody does it first, but you'll figure it out. And you've got James and Mom and Dad and..." I hesitated only briefly before adding, "And you've got me. Whatever you need." "Thanks, sis." The warmth in her voice felt like a balm on old wounds. "Actually, there is something..." She mentioned wanting a baby shower but feeling overwhelmed by the logistics given her demanding job as a marketing executive and the pregnancy fatigue that left her drained by evening. Before I even realized what I was saying, I'd volunteered to help. "Really?" The surprise in her voice was palpable. "You do that for me?" "Of course," I replied, trying not to let it sting that my offer of kindness was so unexpected. What are sisters for? What started as an offer to help quickly evolved into something much bigger. As I scoured Pinterest boards and baby shower planning guides late into the night, a plan began to form. Vanessa had always craved the spotlight, had always wanted to be seen as exceptional. What if, just this once, I could give her something truly extraordinary? Not just any baby shower, but the kind that would make her feel like the queen she'd always wanted to be. I didn't tell her about the mounting costs. Not when I booked the glass-enclosed rooftop venue overlooking the city skyline, nor when I secured the farm-to-table catering service that specialized in pregnancy-friendly gourmet cuisine. I said nothing about the handcrafted decorations I ordered from artisans across the country, or the custom-designed invitations embossed with gold foil that cost more per envelope than I typically spend on dinner. The florist raised his eyebrows when I described the arrangements I wanted, cascading white orchids and baby's breath suspended from the ceiling, creating the illusion of clouds, with touches of soft pink and blue blooms arranged in vintage crystal vases on each table. "This is quite the elaborate setup," he commented, tallying the estimate. "You must be very close to the mother-to-be." I smiled tightly. "She's my sister." I didn't elaborate. How could I explain that this extravagance was part apology, part peace offering, and part desperate attempt to finally bridge the chasm between us? That I hoped these physical manifestations of care might translate into the emotional connection we'd never quite managed to establish? The piece de resistance came through a stroke of luck. During my college years, I'd worked as an assistant for a catering company that often partnered with Gabriel Fontaine, a pastry chef who had since risen to national acclaim with his own baking show. We'd kept in touch, and when I reached out to him about creating something special for Vanessa's shower, He'd agreed almost immediately. For you, Eleanor? Of course. You saved my career that night the sous chef quit, and you stepped in to help plate 50 desserts. His French accent had faded somewhat over the years, but his generosity hadn't. I will create something magnificent for your sister. A cake that tells a story. The design we settled on was breathtaking. 5 tiers of vanilla bean cake with raspberry filling, covered in hand-painted fondant depicting scenes from classic children's books. The top tier would feature characters from Goodnight Moon, while the bottom, largest tier would showcase the enchanted forest from Where the Wild Things Are. Each tier between would highlight another beloved story, the artistry so intricate it would look like watercolor illustrations brought to 3-dimensional life. This is my gift to you, Gabriel insisted when I asked about the cost. I knew better than to believe him entirely. A creation like this would normally run into the thousands. After much insistence, he agreed to let me pay for the ingredients and a fraction of his time, but even that discounted price made my credit card tremble. As the weeks passed and the shower drew closer, my savings account dwindled alarmingly. I'd never been a big spender. My modest salary as a children's librarian didn't allow for much extravagance, but I'd always been diligent about setting money aside. The trip to Japan I'd been saving for over 3 years would have to wait. This was more important. I took 3 deep breaths before calling Vanessa again. This time, she picked up. Ellie, I'm literally in the middle of getting my makeup done. Can this wait? Her voice had that familiar edge, the one that made me feel like I was always an inconvenience. It's about your Instagram post, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I saw what you wrote about the shower. Oh, did you like it? The photos came out amazing, right? James said my pregnancy glow is really showing. The complete misunderstanding of my concern was so typical that I almost laughed. That's not, Vanessa, you're taking credit for everything I did. You didn't mention me once. You claimed you have a personal friendship with Gabriel when you've never even met him. The line went quiet for a moment. Then she sighed dramatically. Are you seriously calling to nitpick my social media? Today of all days. I'm not nitpicking. I spent $10,000 on this shower. You what? She cut me off. Are you insane? Nobody asked you to spend that kind of money. I want to do something special for you, I said, feeling foolish now. But it hurts that you're acting like you did all this yourself. You even said you have connections with Gabriel when… Oh my God, Ellie. It's just Instagram. Nobody cares about the details. Do you know how pathetic it would look if I posted, my sister had to plan my baby shower because I couldn't handle it? Her words stung like a slap. That's not what happened and you know it. Look, her voice dropped to a harsh whisper. My followers expect a certain image. My sponsors are watching. This is literally my career. I can't have people thinking I needed my little sister to swoop in and save the day. So you'd rather lie? I asked, incredulous. It's not lying, it's curating, she snapped. God, you're so literal about everything. This is why you don't have the followers I do. Nobody wants reality, Ellie. They want the dream. I closed my eyes, trying to center myself. I didn't do this for your followers. I did it for you. And I appreciate it really. But can we please have this conversation another time? People are going to start arriving in a few hours, and I'm nowhere near ready. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a notification. I pulled it away from my ear to glance at the screen. Vanessa had posted again, a series of Instagram stories featuring close-ups of the flower arrangements being set up, the custom welcome sign I'd commissioned, the gift table with its elaborate backdrop. Don't ruin this for me, Vanessa was saying when I put the phone back to my ear. I've been planning this day for weeks. Something in me snapped. You haven't planned anything. I handled every detail, every vendor, every payment. I even taste-tested the hors d'oeuvres because you were too busy with your brand deals. Oh, here we go. Her voice rose. You always do this. Act like you're so selfless and then throw it in my face the second things don't go exactly your way. If you wanted credit so badly, maybe you should have been clear about that from the beginning. I'm not a mind reader, Ellie. I didn't want credit, I said quietly. I just didn't want to be erased. Nobody's erasing you, she said, but her tone had shifted to that patronizing one she often used with me. "You're making this way bigger than it needs to be." This is exactly what Mom meant when she said you're always trying to make everything about you. My breath caught. What? You heard me. Don't act surprised. You've always been jealous of me, of my life, my success, my relationships. And now that I'm having a baby, you can't stand not being the center of attention, so you're creating drama. I was speechless. Not only was she twisting the situation completely, but she was bringing our mother into it, creating a narrative where I was the villain. That's not true. I finally managed. I just wanted. I know exactly what you wanted, she interrupted. You wanted everyone to see what a saint you are, sacrificing for your selfish sister. Well, guess what? Nobody asked you to spend your savings. That was your choice. Another notification pinged, an Instagram comment from one of her followers. OMG, how do you know Gabriel Fontaine? So jealous. And Vanessa's reply, we go way back. Always support your friends' creative journeys, 2 hearts. I felt physically ill. I have to go, I said. The florist needs me to approve the final arrangements. Fine. She sounded almost relieved. But Ellie, when you show up later, please don't make this weird. My friends are coming, and some of them are pretty influential. I don't need you telling everyone how you funded everything. It makes both of us look bad. She hung up before I could respond. I stood there in my apartment, surrounded by shower gifts I'd purchased and wrapped, staring at my phone in disbelief. For years, I'd told myself that Vanessa's self-centeredness was just her way of protecting herself. That deep down, she valued our relationship as much as I did. I'd made excuses for her behavior, always giving her the benefit of the doubt. But there was no excusing this. No justifying it. No pretending it was anything other than what it was. A betrayal. I grabbed my car keys. It was time to face the music and my sister. The drive to the venue felt surreal, like I was floating outside my body. Rain began to sprinkle against my windshield, matching my darkening mood. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, rehearsing what I would say to Vanessa. I wasn't going to cause a scene. That wasn't my style, but we needed to clear the air before guests arrived. The glass pavilion looked magical even from the parking lot. White fairy lights twinkled through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a warm glow against the gathering storm clouds. Inside, I could see staff bustling about, making final adjustments to the decorations I'd meticulously selected. I grabbed my emergency kit, extra safety pins, double-sided tape, a sewing kit, and backup fairy lights from my trunk and headed toward the entrance. A light rain dampened my hair as I approached the glass doors. Just as I was about to pull one open, a security guard stepped forward. Name, please, he asked, consulting a tablet. Eleanor Wilson. I'm the host, co-host, the bride's sister. He scrolled through his list, frowning slightly. I'm sorry, ma'am. Your name isn't on the approved guest list. I laughed, thinking it was a mistake. That's impossible. I organized this entire event. Check under organizer or planner. Maybe family? The security guard looked uncomfortable now. I've checked every category, Ms. Wilson. Your name isn't here. He lowered his voice. And I have specific instructions that you're not to be admitted under any circumstances. My stomach dropped. There must be some mistake. Let me call my sister. I fumbled for my phone, hands suddenly clumsy with disbelief. Before I could dial, it buzzed with a text from Vanessa. Hey, I think it's best if you don't come today. Things feel tense between us, and I don't want any drama. It's just to keep the peace. Hope you understand. Red heart. I stared at the message, reading it 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. She was banning me from the baby shower I had planned and paid for? The injustice of it was so absurd that I almost laughed. Ms. Wilson. The security guard looked genuinely apologetic. Do you need a moment? I need to speak with the event coordinator, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. Amanda Parker. She knows me. He stepped aside to make a call, speaking quietly into his radio. A few minutes later, Amanda emerged, her face contorted with awkward sympathy. Ellie, she began, clearly uncomfortable. I'm so sorry about this. There's been a situation. A situation? I echoed. Amanda, I signed the contract with you. I paid the deposit. I approved every single detail of this event. She nodded, glancing nervously back toward the venue. I know, but Mrs. Henderson Wilson, your sister, she's the honoree, and she's made it clear that she doesn't want you here today. Legally, as the venue, we have to respect her wishes. Did she tell you why? I asked, feeling a lump forming in my throat. Amanda hesitated. She said you were unstable, that you might cause a scene. She lowered her voice. She mentioned something about you being jealous of her pregnancy because you're single. The words hit me like a physical blow. Not only had Vanessa banned me, but she'd fabricated a reason that painted me as some unhinged, bitter spinster. I'd never even expressed a desire for children of my own. Just then, a group of elegantly dressed women approached the entrance, chattering excitedly. They were Vanessa's friends. I recognized them from her social media. One of them, a blonde wearing a pink maternity dress, noticed me and nudged her companion. They whispered something, then deliberately avoided eye contact as they swept past me into the venue. They knew. Somehow, they knew I'd been barred from attending, which meant Vanessa had told them, had perhaps even turned my exclusion into part of the day's narrative. I stood there in the steadily increasing rain, clutching my emergency kit, watching through the glass as the party I had created came to life without me. I could see the flower arrangements I'd selected, the custom backdrop I designed, the signature mocktails being prepared according to recipes I'd chosen.
My phone buzzed again.
Another text from Vanessa. The cake just arrived, and it's everything. Gabriel absolutely outdid himself. My followers are going to die when they see it. Birthday cake, baby, 2 hearts. Attached was a photo of Gabriel's assistant wheeling in the magnificent 5-tier creation. The cake I had commissioned, designed, and partially paid for. The cake that was only there because of my relationship with the chef. Something hardened inside me at that moment. A line had been crossed that couldn't be uncrossed. This wasn't just Vanessa being her usual self-centered self. This was deliberate cruelty, a systematic erasure of my contribution, and then my actual physical presence. I walked back to my car on wooden legs, rain now soaking through my carefully chosen outfit. I sat behind the wheel, water dripping from my hair onto my phone screen as I scrolled through my contacts. I found Gabriel's number and stared at it, finger hovering over the call button. What Vanessa had done was unforgivable, but what I was considering, would I be able to forgive myself? The image of Vanessa's smug text flashed in my mind again. The cake just arrived, and it's everything. Before I could second-guess myself, I pressed call. Gabriel answered on the second ring. Eleanor, how is the big day going? Is the cake everything you hoped for? Actually, Gabriel, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. We need to talk. There's something you should know about that cake. Let me get this straight, Gabriel said, his French accent thickening with emotion. You spent $10,000 on the shower, and your sister has banned you from attending? I gripped the phone tighter, rain pattering against my car roof. Yes. And she is telling everyone that she and I are personal friends when she has never once met me? Yes. And she has not given you credit for anything, not for the planning, not for the payment, not even for knowing me? That's correct. A heavy silence fell between us. I could hear the ambient sounds of the kitchen in the background, the clatter of utensils, muffled voices of his staff. Eleanor, Gabriel finally said, his voice gentle. Why did you call me? What do you want me to do? It was the question I'd been avoiding asking myself. What did I want? Revenge? Justice? Recognition? Or just to not feel so utterly powerless? I don't know, I admitted. I thought you should know that your name and reputation are being used under false pretenses. Another silence. Then, I understand. And I appreciate your honesty. His tone shifted, becoming more businesslike. You know, there is a clause in my contract about public representation and attribution. If someone falsely claims a personal relationship with me or my brand, it constitutes a breach. My heartbeat quickened. I didn't know that. Most people don't read the fine print, he said. But it exists for situations exactly like this. What happens in case of a breach? I asked, barely breathing. Technically, I would be within my rights to withdraw my services immediately.
He paused.
The cake belongs to my company until it is officially presented and accepted by the client. The implications of what he was saying sank in slowly. Gabriel, I wasn't suggesting. I know you weren't, Eleanor. You're too kind for such things. There was movement on his end, the sound of papers shuffling. But I am not so kind when it comes to my reputation. It is all I have in this business. My mind raced. This wasn't what I had intended when I called him. Or was it? Had some part of me known exactly what might happen? What are you going to do? I asked. What I must. His tone was resolute. I will call my assistant who is overseeing the delivery. The cake will be removed immediately due to contractual breach. It is simply business. Gabriel, wait. I started, suddenly uncertain. Eleanor, he cut in, you called me because you know this is wrong. Your sister is using both of us. I respect you too much to let that stand.
He paused.
Unless you tell me not to proceed, I will reclaim what is mine. This was my moment to back down, to be the bigger person, to let it go. The Eleanor of yesterday would have done just that. But I wasn't the same Eleanor anymore. I understand, I said quietly. Good. I will handle this. And Eleanor? This remains between us. No public statements, no social media. Just a quiet correction. Thank you, Gabriel. After we hung up, I sat motionless in my car, rain drumming steadily on the roof. What had I done? I wasn't a vengeful person by nature. I'd always been the peacekeeper, the one who smoothed things over, who forgave and forgot. But there was something different about this betrayal. It wasn't just about the money or the credit. It was about Vanessa systematically erasing me from the narrative of the shower, from the venue itself, and ultimately from her life in any meaningful way. 20 minutes passed. My phone remained silent. Had Gabriel changed his mind? Had his assistant refused to carry out his instructions? Then movement at the venue's entrance caught my eye. Through the rain-streaked windshield, I saw Gabriel's assistant, Mia, emerge with two men in chef's whites. Between them, they carefully maneuvered the massive cake, now protected in its transport case, out the door and toward a van parked nearby. Several guests had gathered at the entrance, watching in confusion. One woman, Vanessa's best friend Rachel, appeared to be filming with her phone. Even from a distance, I could see the shock and bewilderment on their faces. My phone buzzed with an incoming call from an unknown number. It's done, Mia said when I answered. The cake has been retrieved due to contractual violation. Chef Fontaine wanted you to know personally. Thank you, I whispered, watching as they secured the cake in the van. Is he very angry? He believes in justice, Ms. Wilson, and he values loyalty. There was a hint of respect in her voice. He also asked me to tell you that if you would like to see the cake in its completed form, it will be at our studio for the next 24 hours before we repurpose it. The van pulled away, leaving a cluster of confused guests at the entrance. Through the glass, I could see staff members rushing toward the gift table, where the cake had been the centerpiece. My phone erupted with notifications. Texts from relatives who were attending. Messages from mutual friends. Most of them variations on the same theme. What's happening? Where's the cake? Is everything okay? And then, finally, from Vanessa. What did you do? I didn't respond. Instead, I started my car and pulled away from the venue, leaving behind the shower I'd created, the sister who'd betrayed me, and the person I used to be. For the first time in our relationship, I wasn't asking for Vanessa's approval or attention. I wasn't trying to mend fences or keep the peace. I was simply reclaiming what was mine, my dignity. I didn't go home. Not immediately. I drove aimlessly through the rain-slick streets, my phone buzzing incessantly on the passenger seat. After 30 minutes of random turns, I pulled into a coffee shop parking lot and finally looked at my messages. 17 texts from Vanessa, each more frantic than the last. What did you do? The cake is gone. Gabriel's people said there was a contract violation. Call me now. You're ruining everything. Everyone is asking questions I can't answer. Mom and Dad want to know what's happening. How could you do this to me? 3 missed calls from our mother. 2 from our father. Several messages from mutual friends, ranging from confused to concerned. And then, most surprisingly, a text from Rachel, Vanessa's best friend and perpetual enabler. Ellie, what's going on? V says you got the cake taken away, but isn't explaining why. Guests are confused. Someone said you paid for everything? Is that true? I stared at Rachel's message for a long moment. She had always been firmly in Vanessa's corner, often joining my sister in subtle put-downs and exclusions. For her to reach out directly and to ask that specific question meant something significant was happening at the shower. I turned my phone off without responding to anyone and went into the coffee shop. Ordering a large black coffee, I sat in a corner booth, trying to process the morning's events. I had never done anything like this before, had never stood up to Vanessa in such a definitive way. It was nearly 2 hours later when I finally turned my phone back on. I was prepared for more angry messages, more accusations. What I wasn't prepared for was what awaited me. My Instagram notifications had exploded. I had been tagged in dozens of posts and stories. With trembling fingers, I opened the first one, a post from Rachel. It was a split-screen image. On one side, Vanessa's post from that morning taking credit for the shower. On the other, a screenshot of a receipt in my name for the venue payment. The caption read, "The truth always comes out. Sending love to @EllieWilson who deserves better. Hashtag the real story, hashtag baby showergate." I quickly scrolled through other notifications. Posts from mutual acquaintances, distant relatives, even some of Vanessa's influencer friends. The story was spreading like wildfire, with new details emerging by the minute. Someone had posted the contract with a catering company, showing my signature and payment information. Another had shared screenshots of my email exchanges with the florist. A third had posted a video of Gabriel's assistant explaining to the bewildered guests that the cake had been removed due to false claims of personal affiliation with Chef Fontaine. The narrative was shifting before my eyes. I wasn't the villain in this story anymore. My phone rang, my mother. "Eleanor," she said when I answered, her voice unusually subdued. "We need to talk about what happened today." "Mom, No, let me finish," she interrupted. "Your father and I are at the venue. The shower is..." She paused, searching for the right word. "It's falling apart. Vanessa is hysterical. Half the guests have left. And we've just learned some very disturbing things." I held my breath, waiting for the accusation, the blame. It never came. "Did you really pay for this entire event?" she asked instead. "Yes," I admitted quietly. "And Vanessa banned you from attending?" "Yes." My mother was silent. For so long I thought we'd been disconnected.
Mom,
"We didn't know," she finally said, her voice thick with emotion. "She told us you couldn't make it because you had a work emergency. She's been telling everyone the same story all day, that you were helping with some details but couldn't be here for the actual event. That's not what happened. We know that now." Another pause. "Eleanor, why didn't you tell us what was going on?" The question caught me off guard. Why hadn't I told them? The answer was uncomfortable but obvious, because they had always taken Vanessa's side. Because I had always been cast as the jealous little sister, the one who needed to be more understanding, more accommodating. "Would you have believed me?" I asked softly. My mother's sharp intake of breath told me everything. "That's not fair," she said, but there was no conviction in her voice. "Isn't it?" Before she could respond, I heard commotion in the background, raised voices, something shattering. "I have to go," my mother said hurriedly. She's not handling this well. Your father is trying to calm her down." After she hung up, I opened Instagram again. The story had evolved further. Someone had started a hashtag Justice for Ellie. It was trending locally. One of Vanessa's sponsors, a luxury baby clothing brand, had posted a statement. "In light of recent events, we are reevaluating our partnership with certain influencers. Authenticity and honesty are core values of our brand." My phone buzzed with a text notification from Gabriel. Turn on Channel 7 News. Now. I frantically searched for the coffee shop's remote, finally asking the barista to change the channel. The local news was running a segment titled Social Media Shower Showdown. The anchor was speaking solemnly. What began as a lavish baby shower for local influencer Vanessa Henderson Wilson has erupted into a social media firestorm after allegations that Henderson Wilson misrepresented her role in planning the event and falsely claimed a friendship with celebrity chef Gabriel Fontaine. The screen showed footage of guests leaving the venue, of Vanessa being escorted to a car by our father, her face hidden behind large sunglasses despite the rain. And, most surprisingly, a brief statement from Gabriel himself. While I cannot comment on specific client relationships, my brand stands for authenticity and giving credit where it is due. Today's events are unfortunate, but were necessary to protect these values. I sat frozen, coffee growing cold, watching as my private family drama played out on local television. This wasn't at all what I had intended. I had wanted recognition, yes, but not this public implosion. As the segment ended, my phone buzzed with a new text from Vanessa. I hope you're happy now. You've ruined everything. For once, I didn't feel the familiar guilt or need to apologize. Because for once, I wasn't the one who had done the ruining. The morning after the disastrous baby shower, I woke to a symphony of notifications. Overnight, the story had grown legs. Someone had created a side-by-side timeline of Vanessa's posts against my receipts and communications with vendors. The hashtag #JusticeForEllie had reached national trending status, and my Instagram followers had quadrupled. I ignored it all and made myself a cup of tea. The emotional whiplash of the previous day had left me drained but strangely peaceful. For the first time in our relationship, I wasn't chasing after Vanessa, trying to fix things, apologizing for standing up for myself. My doorbell rang at 9:15 a.m. Through the peephole, I saw my parents standing there, looking tired and subdued. I hesitated before opening the door. "Can we come in?" my father asked, his voice gentle. "We think it's time we had a family conversation." "Vanessa isn't with you?" I asked, noting their solitary presence. "No," my mother said. "This is between us and you right now." I let them in, leading them to my small living room. An awkward silence settled over us before my father finally spoke. "We owe you an apology, Eleanor." Of all the things I had expected him to say, this wasn't one of them. My father wasn't a man who apologized easily. "For a long time," he continued, "we've enabled Vanessa's behavior. We've made excuses for her, asked you to accommodate her, and never really held her accountable." His voice wavered. "Yesterday made us see how deeply unfair that's been to you." My mother reached for my hand. "When we saw the receipts, the contracts, all in your name, we couldn't believe it. $10,000, Ellie. That's more than—" "I know how much it is," I said quietly. "I've been saving for Japan for 3 years." Her eyes filled with tears. "And you spent it all on your sister, who then banned you from the event." She shook her head, visibly struggling with this reality. "We raised you both better than this. At least, we thought we had." "Where is Vanessa now?" I asked. They exchanged glances. "At home with James," my father answered. "She's not in a good place. 3 more sponsors dropped her this morning. Her agent called to say they're taking a break from their professional relationship." I felt a twinge of guilt, despite everything. "I never meant for it to become this public spectacle. None of this is your fault," my mother said firmly. "Vanessa created this situation. She's reaping the consequences of her own actions." My phone buzzed with a text from Gabriel. "Are we still on for 11 o'clock? The cake awaits." I had almost forgotten his invitation to see the cake at his studio. "I have somewhere to be at 11, I told my parents, standing up. "You're welcome to join me if you'd like." To my surprise, they agreed. Gabriel's studio was a converted warehouse in the Arts District, all exposed brick and gleaming stainless steel. He greeted us warmly at the door, kissing both my cheeks. "Eleanor, my dear friend," he emphasized the word deliberately, "I'm so pleased you could come. And you've brought your parents, wonderful." He led us through the kitchen to a private dining room where, on a pedestal in the center, stood the magnificent 5-tier cake in all its glory. The hand-painted scenes from classic children's books seemed to come alive under the soft lighting. It was, without question, the most beautiful cake I had ever seen. "It seems a shame that so few people got to appreciate your artistry," I said. Gabriel shrugged elegantly. "Beauty is not diminished by privacy. Sometimes it is enhanced by it." He gestured to a table set for 4. I thought we might enjoy the cake together, as it was meant to be enjoyed, among friends who appreciate both the art and the artist. As we sat down, the studio door opened again. Gabriel's assistant escorted in an unexpected guest, James, Vanessa's husband, looking exhausted and apologetic. "I hope it's okay that I'm here," he said, addressing me directly. "Vanessa doesn't know I've come." Before I could respond, he handed me an envelope. "It's a check," he explained, "for $10,000. It doesn't undo what happened, but it's a start." I stared at the check, emotions tumbling through me. "James, you don't have to." "Yes, I do," he insisted. "And there's something else you should know." He placed his hand on mine, his expression serious. "We're naming the baby Eleanor." I blinked in surprise. "What?" "It was always the plan," he said. "Vanessa suggested it months ago. She said despite your differences, you were the strongest, kindest person she knew, and she wanted our daughter to have those qualities." The revelation hit me like a wave. Even in the midst of our worst conflict, Vanessa had planned to honor me in the most permanent way possible. "She's complicated," James continued, "and sometimes selfish, and definitely wrong in how she treated you. But she loves you, Ellie. In her own flawed way, she really does." My parents exchanged glances, clearly as surprised as I was by this revelation. Gabriel, ever the gracious host, broke the emotional tension. "Now, shall we taste this infamous cake? I believe everything tastes sweeter in good company." And so we did, James, my parents, Gabriel, and me, sharing slices of the cake that had become both the symbol of betrayal and, strangely, the catalyst for truth. With each bite of the delicate vanilla bean and raspberry creation, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't the dramatic revenge I might have fantasized about in my darkest moments. It was something more profound, the sweet satisfaction of finally being seen, of boundaries acknowledged, of truth recognized. As we ate, my phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. "Can we talk? Please." I looked around the table at my parents, at James, at Gabriel, people who were showing up for me, supporting me, validating my worth. For once, Vanessa could wait. I put my phone away and took another bite of cake. It was, without question, the sweetest thing I had ever tasted.